episode 2 of the Workers Manifesto podcast. We're here with my friend Chad, and I'm really excited. Thank you for coming on. I'm actually really excited to do this. So, first of all, I guess I want to talk about, well, to begin, right, how is it that we have a state, right, where everyone knows we have pedophiles, right? We have highly corrupt, evil land speculators, right? Um despite the fact, I thought when I was younger that when the age of the internet um hit us, that we would it would bring us to a consensus that it would expose everything that's going on and that this type of shit would stop. And yet what it seems like is it's almost just become a complete joke of itself. Like with the memes and everything, it's like a joke. Like they know that everything sucks and we know everything sucks, and yet there's nothing that we can do about it. Like, how is it that they keep maintaining these power structures? It is really hard to organize. It's really strange. There's a lot of different organizations, like the PSL, CPUSA, the RCA, but the they're so few and far between. It's hard to just start a local communist organization and trying to get the ball moving for these kinds of things. Apologize on my end. There's a couple of minutes of the podcast missing in this part right here, but the rest of it is totally fine, and it's just a couple minutes. So sorry about that, guys.
BAP, AARP, those sorts of groups. I think because we live in we're told that we live in a post McCarthy era, but I would argue we are living in an evolved McCarthy era where anti-communist sentiment, anti-socialist sentiment, anti-anarchist sentiment is so woven into society that even bringing up those subjects, you are subject to ridicule and you are subject to institutional blackballing, especially the higher up within academia that you go, which is why I don't really understand why conservatives try to argue that college campuses are this breeding ground for young radicals, when we know that's the furthest thing from the truth. We just saw back a couple years ago when students at freaking Columbia, the Ivy League, the pinnacle of U.S. education, were literally getting bulldozed and getting um, uh, trampled on by police officers simply for protesting a genocide in Gaza and wanting their school to divest economically from an apartheid state. So it goes to show that within our society, the Democratic establishment and the Republican establishment will put down their supposed ideological differences and stopping everything to the left of Bernie Sanders.
Dude, and it's crazy. For me, honestly, like a lot of people say Bernie 2016. For me, the true radical moment where I uh realized that socialism was the answer was when Bernie 2020 happened, and he was absolutely steamrolling these centrist corporate Democrats in ways that we had never seen before. He was dominating these primaries in ways we had literally never seen. Like, I don't even think Obama was crushing it the way he was, like just winning the first 3 straight primaries. And so when they all combined their efforts and put all their delegates into Joe Biden, who was politically unelectable at that point. Like, a guy in 6th place is not going to rack in enough views in a tight race on Super Sunday. That's not happening. And then to see that they literally just gave us the undemocratic candidate that nobody wanted, and then threw that on us. And then people were like, well, the problem with Biden was just that he got old, and they should have knew when his time was up. We told them this shit back in 2020. Like we were telling, like this is why we were not with Biden because he already looked old as fuck. So
Yeah, I
it's
remember watching. I remember watching that debate, and I was like Trump obviously, was giving his same old lies and misinformation for sure, but Biden truly was out of it, like really, really bad. Like it was terrible. I was like, yo, this is awful. I was like, there's no way they can continue with him. If he continues, he might. This man Trump might have a 50-state sweep.
bro.
But what was I about to say? I think the Democratic Party's handling of the Biden candidacy, well, potential candidacy in 2024 was abysmal. And then I think the transition to Kamala, I think when she first announced that she would be running in place of Biden, I think the momentum was really high. Like I remember um, $1 billion was raised for her campaign, and there was a lot of momentum. And then it just nosedived after that, and I think that was in part because of certain political decisions in basically saying that in order for her to win, she needed to placate to the center and be more moderate. And I think now looking back on that, that was a bad strategy. But I think it's unfortunate that the Democratic Party even post election still is sort of doubling down on that because they're low key, at least the main candidate who they're pushing, Gavin Newsom, is basically like, throwing trans people under a bus. Basically, arguing that billionaires shouldn't be taxed more is unnerving, to be honest.
The fact that he took pictures of himself destroying homeless encampments like he was doing
Oh yeah, I
something
remember
good
that.
for the
Yeah,
community.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
Like this guy is a fucking snake in the grass, dude.
yeah. I don't. I think. Well, do I think? I feel like if Gavin runs in 2028, um, I think JD's probably going to win. The worst case scenario would be if Gavin runs and Tucker Carlson ends up running. If Tucker Carlson runs, then this country is truly, truly in trouble.
I think, and I even Hassan said that like he thinks Tucker Carlson would beat him because
He would. He
he's
would.
not backed by Israel. And
He's
dude,
not backed by Israel, but he also has institutional sort of cachet because he has been a news host at Fox for decades.
yo, actually, I really want to get into this. I gotta, and thanks for saying something earlier because I realize I gotta be careful what I say because I'm on TikTok live. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so people like Tucker Carlson, I think, are the perfect example of this, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
scary type of WYT supremacist that a lot of these people are like that I know in real life. As a white person that grew up in Tabernacle, New Jersey, I know a lot of middle class white people that are very much in that echelon where
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to openly say I hate black people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't say that. Or they don't feel that way either. But the sentiment that they believe, they just don't put two and two together that it's that they're buying into WYT supremacy propaganda. When you hear them talk about like people living in the South, for instance, like, oh, look at all the like, the problems with like a lot of poor blacks that live in the South, and they're like, well, they could just move, or like, well, the problem is it's a cultural issue. But it's like,
Mm-hmm.
why do you think that these cultural issues just happen to pertain in predominantly black neighborhoods where also Jim Crow laws also happen to have persisted?
Mm-hmm. No, that's real, and I think I wouldn't say this is capitalist realism, but I would say that it's this sort of I would say with Tucker specifically, he placates to a lot of the grievances of white working class uh, voters, but he comes to the raw conclusion. Like it's sort of the which way Western man meme of like go down the path of becoming like this red pill manosphere,
Hi,
sort of.
Jay. Sorry, my friend Jay's here. Just want to say hi,
Okay,
Jay.
you
Thanks
good.
for coming to my live. This is the first time
Sort
Jay's in
of
my live. Continue, Jed.
where like you have a lot of right wing folks who flirt with white supremacist talking points, Um, or you could go down the path of eventually, moving further to the left, embracing progressive ideals, embracing the working class, embracing collectivism. And I think that because the right has such a chokehold on the cultural zeitgeist, I don't think there's a way for the quote unquote left to really catch up, considering that the Democratic Party, who's supposed to be the representative of the left, even though we know they're not of the left at all, they will do everything in their power to distance themselves from any real progressive grassroots movement, whether it be in real life or online. Um, I would say that's the main reason why the right culturally has overtaken the quote unquote left, where you have now, there was a recent article that I read. It was from the Guardian that um, there's a large number of Gen Z boys and men who believe that a woman should obey their husband, and a larger percentage of them believe that more than baby boomers. So it's like we're seeing that the conservative propaganda is working. So if we don't want our country to be overtaken by fascism, there has to be sort of a mass movement, both online and in real life, to be able to combat those sort of talking points. And I think um, everybody has a role in that. And I think whether you make content online, whether you talk to people in real life, whether you're in organizing spaces, everybody has their role. And whatever role you have, you do it to the best of your ability. Hello, hello.
I mute. No, I'm back. I keep muting my mic, and then I keep forgetting to unmute my mic. Um,
Okay, you good?
Thank you so much for the gift. Yeah, dude. So it's crazy because you have like, for instance, right? Like Tucker Carlson will get up there and he'll make a point about Israel that everyone agrees with, but blatantly ignore the
Mhm.
fact that what we're doing in Cuba is literally the same thing that they're doing to Palestine.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're right now they're blockading, not blockading. They're what you call it? Cuba's in a blackout right now, and I know there's a couple of comrades that I know who are actually traveling to Cuba to deliver aid to them right
Thank
now.
thank God. I think Madeline is one
Um,
of them.
yeah, I think I know Madeline Penman is there. One of my comrades, James is political. He is also down there too, I believe.
Thank
But
God.
yeah, I think Cuba is a good example of this. Haiti's a good example of this, where we know the United States and their imperialist interests will do everything to stifle working class movements, especially in the global South, and cripple their economies to extract their natural resources.
Dude, and it's
Um, now go
sorry,
ahead, go ahead.
continue. It's so hard to convince people too. It's so like it's like pulling teeth sometimes. Like I was talking to my friend's uncle who literally like I'm talking to him about all this stuff. I'm explaining like the crack epidemic and how we peddled
Hmm.
that into the neighborhoods. And then they go in and he goes, "Do you think they were trying to take down like the Black Panthers on purpose?" I'm like, What do you mean?"
They literally
Like,
admitted to it. They literally
yeah,
said in FBI files that they feared a black messiah, which is why they murdered Fred Hampton.
son, that's what I'm saying. Um,
Yeah, he said, son.
Someone just said son.
No, but for real, the scary part about what you just told about your interaction was it's a lot harder. Like it's easier for some people to believe that celebrities go to the Bohemian Grove to do blood sacrifices, but they can't believe that the CIA would purposely engage in chemical warfare against its own citizens.
Oh my god, it blows my
Even
mind, like,
and
that's
they
a
and
step
they'll
too far
literally
for them, you know?
and they'll literally admit that they engage in chemical warfare against their own citizens. They'll literally admit to it, and they're like, "No, not my CIA." And it's just like, and that coincides with, I guess, the broader umbrella of propaganda, because I would say there's types of propaganda that are the most um, obvious to see if you're somebody on the left. It's CIA propaganda, military industrial complex propaganda, propaganda, American exceptionalist propaganda. Those are the big four. Marvel movies have all of them, probably. Yeah, Marvel movies have all of them. Even though I love Marvel, but they include all those things within their films.
Yo,
But when you talk to the
U.S.
average Americans, you go ahead, go ahead.
U.S. propaganda be going crazy. Like it take. I didn't realize till recently how hard U.S. propaganda goes in like media and shit. Like
Yeah,
basically every war
there's a
movie
what you call it.
ever.
There's an ambassador program, if I'm not mistaken, that the U.S. State Department engages in, where they have certain celebrities have concerts, like they're like lower level celebrities, but they're like micro influencers, where they will have concerts in respective countries around the world and sort of like gargle the US's balls and talk about how great the US is under the guise of cultural exploration. Um, and goes back to the 50s and 60s, where you had certain black artists within the United States go to different African countries that the United States was currently trying to extract resources from, and sort of try to quelch the masses with performance. Like it's sort of the bread and circuses uh, dichotomy, where if you give people entertainment, you give them enough gadgets and stuff, they won't revolt.
Yeah. Um. And it's crazy, right? Like we have reached a point. Like we have a president of the United States who literally, like, not even treating Cuba like it is a literal plaything for him. I can do whatever I want with it. I could free it literally it like this
Mhm.
whole island of people it. I could free it. I could do whatever I want. It's practically mine. Like what are we doing that like the rest of these world leaders are just burying their heads in the sand when the US and Israel kind of just do whatever they want with the 4D chessboard?
I mean, unfortunately, that is the sort of dynamic that occurs considering how much the United States spends on its military. Like, if I'm not mistaken, the U.S. spends more than the next 10 countries combined on military spending. So, because of our military might, people are afraid to sort of go against the United States. And because Israel is um, a ally of the United States, and the fact that the United States funds, they're the biggest funder of Israel's military. There's this trepidation that if you come at Israel, if you come at the United States, then your countries, I'm not gonna say low key, they're not F, but like there there's going to be consequences for that, which we're seeing right now with Iran, and we're going to see how that standoff sort of plays out. Considering right now we see gas prices rising across the country because of this conflict. I remember the other day I went to get gas. It was like 320 something. Now I just drove past a gas station coming home from the gym, and it was $4.
Oh
So
yeah, dude.
yeah, we're seeing that the United States and their imperialism will have its effect on your daily life here. That's why I think having an anti-imperialist analysis is very key, and connecting imperialist conflicts back home to your regular everyday life as a working class person is very much key in being able to radicalize people around you.
It's there's some weird disconnect, right? I've noticed. So this same person, right, that doesn't realize that they're a WYT supremacist, I
Hmm.
noticed something, right, that when they talk about things, right, like it's
Hmm.
like there first of all, even history is whitewashed because I don't know why anyone would look up to any of these old cultures, but this idea that like the Ottomans were like you know, burying their hands in the sand and shit while the Romans were building roads and doing these great things. And I'm just
Hmm.
like, Rome lost, bro. To the Ottomans. Like they
Hmm.
obviously must have been somewhat formidable. Like there's so much. to like, and the other weird thing is that like Romans destroyed a lot of white culture. Like the Norwegian and Germanic peoples and their
Yeah,
practices were totally destroyed by Rome.
that is true. I mean, I think when you talked about the whitewashing of history and sort of the romantic, that like a lot of fascists, they romanticize the Roman Empire, they romanticize Nazi Germany, of course. That is because of, like you said, the whitewashing of history and the distortion of history, to where you have to sort of uh, give young fascists this goal of returning to the glory days, returning to where the white man had his place. Even though, I mean, the white man has his place now at the top of the global hegemonic society. So it's like this idea that, like, especially they a lot of older fascists, they instill a lot of insecurity within young men, which is why in particular, whether it be the manosphere, red pill spaces, there's this sort of idea that if you don't fit this certain mode, if you don't try to uphold this sort of masculinity of the past, then you're soft, you're this thing, you're that thing, you're being effeminized, you're being a cuck, all that nonsense. And so this sort of dynamic has trickled down within society because, like you said, the whitewashing of history. Because if you whitewash history, you're able to create a disillusioned working class. And if you create a disillusioned working class, it's harder for them to organize. And when you make it harder for them to organize, they will then create a sort of power dynamic where you have the working class sort of going against each other and sort of placating themselves to get the crumbs of the ruling class.
Which is also crazy because colonization is a part of the whitewashing, in my opinion. Like
Yeah, most
the whole
definitely.
like
Yeah, I agree.
we are dominant and like we just win and we win battles and America first. It's like, bro, like that was put into you. Like you were told this is what it means to be great and white. And like,
Hmm.
like you yourself have been colonized in a way. It's like whites
Yeah, the Irish. I
WYT.
was gonna say that. I was gonna say the Irish in particular. Their sort of identity, and not necessarily their identity, but their culture was looked down upon by the British, the French, and other European cultures. And the Italians as well had to deal with this. The Polish as well, when those immigrants came to America, they were the Europeans who were looked down upon by the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. And thus, because of, like you said, whiteness being this sort of nebulous construct, you had those groups of people, once they were able to be sort of accepted as white status, they then in turn looked down upon, black folks and Jewish people. Obviously, black people, the latter, a lot worse than Jewish people, because you could argue now Jewish people are socialized as white. But nevertheless, there's this sort of ebb and flow of what is constituted as white. But because of that, we know that anything that does not fit into that will always be deemed as less and be oppressed, which is why black people and the indigenous people of America have always been seen as a threat by the white power structure.
I want to ask you your opinion on this.
Okay,
What do you
okay.
think? Because what you said made me think about this nationalism, right?
Uh
Is it a
huh.
good thing? Is it a bad thing? What does it mean to you personally? Because there's times where I be reading about the USSR and I'm like, yeah, nationalism. But then there's times I see Trump and I'm like, ooh, no nationalism. And sometimes I think the concept of nationalism allows a state like Israel to end up existing to begin with, where you could just sit there and say, this is the prideful national identity of Jewish people, and you can just totally just wear that and
Okay.
colonize the thing. I don't know.
Okay. That's a valid question. But I think when it comes to nationalism, I think where your nationalism comes from, um, determines whether or not that nationalism is good. I don't think it's like a one size fit all where all nationalism is good and all nationalism is bad. I think it's a case by case basis. For example, you mentioned Israel, right? Um, Israelis having nationalism within their country or having pride in their country is not the same as like Black Americans having pride in their country, or not necessarily Black Americans having pride in their, Black Americans having pride in their culture and their heritage, because Israel as a country is founded on genocide and it's founded on ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. Whereas Black people in America, the pride that we have within our culture comes from the fact that our culture was created in a time, and to this day was created within the confines of a country that enslaved us, a country that has oppressed us, and a country that continues to try to stifle our progress in every way, shape, or form, even to this day, obviously in different methods across different eras. But those two types of nationalism are different in that the culture and the heritage derived come from two different places. The nationalism of Israelis, um, and the sort of propping up of Israel as a country is predicated on the G side and the degradation of the Palestinian people. Whereas Black people in America, our culture is derived from struggle. Our culture is derived from the fact that we survive even with all of the things this country has tried to do to destroy us and do everything in their power to um, annihilate our spirit. Israel is a country, its nationalism and its culture is propped up by Western imperialism. So that's why I say it's a very case by case basis.
I see. So all right. So it's like if it's nationalism built on the uplifting of the proletariat in some way, shape, or form, like we have this national pride of helping our community and that we built something that is good for our community, then it's good. But
Yes,
if
I
it's
think those are two different types of nationalism.
yeah,
And
okay.
having pride in your culture, having pride in your ethnic culture is not inherently like problematic. For example, if there's an Italian person who's prideful about their Italian culture, or Irish pride in their Irish culture, same with the British, the French. Um, or if you could even within the African diaspora, Nigerians being proud of Nigerian culture, um, Jamaicans being prideful about their culture, Haitians being prideful about their culture. That in and of itself is not problematic. What becomes problematic is one trying to sort of other people's cultures and try to make it seem as if their cultures are less than. That's when it becomes problematic.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Um,
So that's why when people say like white culture and stuff, it's like, nah, that's not white culture is something that is very much can't necessarily be a thing because Italians would never be there was a time period where Italians would be considered white. Polish people wouldn't.
oh,
Same with
right.
the I would say specifically the Italians would be considered white. The Irish wouldn't be considered white. White European Jews would not be considered white. Whereas the reason why black people can say the black culture in general, um, or we can say black culture as a collective, is because black people, especially in the West, all have a shared experience and a shared understanding about the struggles that we have had against European colonialism and slavery. And we can understand that while there is one large umbrella of black culture, we understand there's a diversity in that culture. And we have an understanding that all of our cultures are shaped by our material conditions under colonialism and the remnants of slavery now.
Yo, I don't know if you know who Immortal Technique is. I just want to say I saw him live recently, and this conversation got me thinking about him.
Immortal, immortal. You said immortal technique.
Yeah, you would
Is
love
he?
his
What is he?
music if he's a
Oh, he's
rapper.
a rapper.
He's the guy that
Okay.
sings the that song where he's like, "Dance with the devil, you better say never, because a dance with
Hmm.
the devil will last you forever."
You seem like he's a prominent. He's a prominent activist. Okay.
But yeah, you would
Hmm.
love
Okay.
his. He has a song from like 2004 that's like where one of the lyrics is like, "Trapped in the ghetto region like a Palestinian kid, where nobody gives a fuck whether you die or you live."
Oh,
And that
2000.
shit
Oh, it's
hit me.
called. Is a the point of no return.
Yes. Well, that
Okay.
no, I think the song specifically that I'm talking about is the fourth branch. He's talking about how the fourth
Oh,
branch of the
I'm
government
looking at
is the media.
I'm looking at his discography. I'm looking at his singles, and no, he seemed legit. He has singles with Killer Mike and Chuck D. Even though Chuck D's he's not the same anymore. Absolutely not. Fuck Chuck D. Low key. Killer Mike. I have problems with Killer Mike's politics, but I mean these are some heavy hitters. KRS One. Yeah, he got some heavy hitters. He seemed like he legit. All right.
Dude, he was out there selling his own merch and then literally like didn't ask for extra charge. He looked at me like, "You want me to sign it?" I'm like, "Please, what?" Yo,
Not
shook my
police.
hand and
Yeah, he seemed like a cool bull.
yeah, he's so
Um,
cool.
he seemed like it. Yeah. Where are you from? I got his Wikipedia. I'm not sure where you're from. Let me see. Where are you from?
Where you
Oh, he's from New
repping?
York. Oh, he's from New York. Oh, but he was born in Peru. Think he only?
I didn't even know that.
Oh, he only 50.
But he was talking about when he was live. He was saying that he saw when he went to Afghanistan and he saw U.S. soldiers protecting poppy fields.
I mean, I
And
wouldn't be surprised. I
not
mean,
surprised at all.
The Iraq War was devastating. It was probably the worst blunder for the not blunder was the worst thing the United States has done in the past at least 20 years. Yeah, past 20 years, definitely the worst thing the United States has done. Um, uh, and I think that sort of propaganda during that time period has led to a lot of Islamophobia, especially with what's going on in Palestine right now.
It's
Um,
it's crazy. And with Iran, like, dude, they just say shit like they're like, oh, when like the problem is they exaggerate shit. Dude, it's and you've seen it with what they say about the DPRK, where it's just like, dude, I saw a video of someone saying
I
that in
think
the
I think the
DPRK.
DPRK. I think DPRK is a little bit more complicated than what's going on in Iran because they've been saying Iran has weapons of mass destruction for years, and we know that's a lie. Like they don't have. They're just saying
I
they're just saying that Iran is specifically like Israel has been saying they want war with Iran for a minute. Like Netanyahu has been talking about that since like the early 2010s.
I saw a video
So
where someone was saying that like there was like like fucking like in North Korea they got like people push the trains and I'm like that's just not true.
yeah, that's blatant propaganda. Like, I think I think
And I'm like,
there can
bro,
be
this is that
there can be a
bullshit.
what do you call it when it comes to the DPRK when it comes to the DPRK China those two in particular because those are the really the big ones that like I guess sets the left ablaze with discourse.
Dude, wherever capitalism happens, like no matter what the circumstance, it's like you have a Ukraine and a Russia, you got a North Korea and a South Korea, you have a Taiwan and a China and a fucking thank God North and South Vietnam that shit didn't work. But
Yeah,
like
that's the one. That's a, yeah. Anybody who says that we won that war, they're
they're
ridiculous. Yeah.
so dumb, dude, because they don't know, bro. Vietnam has such a long and interesting history. They had a dude called like Deo Mao or Deo
Mm-hmm.
Mao, and this dude was like, dang, like they did the dangest reforms in Vietnam. Came out like, bro, Ho Chi Minh City looks beautiful, and like they've
Yeah,
done
and
so much.
well, let me ask you this: would you consider China socialist or communist?
I would. I personally would. Yes.
Mm.
I would
Okay.
say to me, I think they fit the modern
I thought you were going to say it fits Lenin's idea. Well,
Yeah, I would
not
call like
Lenin's idea. Yeah,
Xi
Lenin's
a
idea.
Marxist-Leninist, in my opinion. I mean, I'm
You said
willing to
what?
debate that. I would call Xi a Marxist-Leninist.
In China?
Xi Jinping?
Yeah, Xi Jinping in China.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
call it the president. They call it president, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. You would consider him a Marxist Leninist?
I mean,
Yeah, I'm
con-
gonna have to
cons-
respectfully disagree on that. Yeah.
considering the circumstances of world capitalism and stuff.
I would say that China right now is state capitalist. I wouldn't say it's Marxist. I wouldn't say it's Marxist Leninist. I would say it's state capitalist. I'm of the position that there isn't a single socialist or communist country on the planet. I
Okay,
don't think
I
that.
can fairly agree with that on some stance.
Okay, like obviously, like in China, there's a cap on like how much you can accrue. Um, but I do think that like in China, in particular, their development after Mao's revolution was definitely something that is impressive. I can't deny that, but I can't sit here in good faith and say that um, it is like a Marx. I wouldn't say it's a Marxist Leninist. I would say that it's state capitalist, to where like
I would
the state sort of regulates how much one person can like amass in comparison like to the United States, to where that's the um global capital of the world. So
My argument to that would be that Lenin himself said all power through the Soviets, and that changed a little bit
hmm
as time went on and the Civil War happened. So
okay.
here in China, we're in an interesting place where they've become the main distributor of shit around the world in a world that's still capitalist. And I think they're more or less kind of just playing the
But
waiting
what
game.
wait, what is it? But yeah, but the fact that China is the main distributor of things in the world, doesn't that further the argument that it's closer to capitalism than socialist or communist though?
But they build a lot of infrastructure for their own people and are doing like they actively the CCP actively does things to try to uplift the peasantry, whereas like in America the parties do everything they can to maintain the status quo. Well, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can agree with that. Though I do think in totality, I do think China's closer to socialism or communism than the United States. I will agree with that. Though I think when it comes to the way in which China operates in terms of freedom of speech, um, I don't think they operate in a way that is conducive to socialism or communist idea of like, being able to organize with one another and being able to create a mass movement. And I would apply that to the United States as well. I think the United States sort of, I don't think the anti-communist propaganda is as prevalent within China as it is in the United States, but I do think that the ruling class within China, just like in the United States, would be against workers organizing, and be against uh, people speaking out regarding the ills of capitalism. You may now in the United States, you may have more ability to talk about how capitalism is bad, but still, when you truly mobilize within the United States, there's consequences, and I think that can apply to China and other countries as well. Like it's not just specific to China.
Speaking of something interesting I thought of that I never hear other comrades talk much about, and a lot of us
hmm
partake in it, myself very much included. And I think we should have
hmm
more serious discussions about this because I think it's a little important, although not as important as things like abortion. But marijuana,
hmm
Why has no country that's ever done the revolution ever legalized marijuana? That one really kind of blows my mind a little.
Can I explain? Can I explain what? Can I explain why that may be?
Yes, please. I would love
Because
to hear your thoughts on this.
because like one, marijuana has been demonized, like especially in America. But there's this idea that like drugs, in particular, and marijuana, is degenerate, and if you partake in that, you're like impure. And that sort of sentiment even exists amongst people on the left. Like this idea that like the puritanism and sort of anti-fun is specific to just the right is a misnomer. This idea that like um you have to be this super pure moral leftist definitely exists on our side just as much as it does on the right. It just shows up in different ways. And I think the anti-marijuana sort of sentiment is an example of that.
100%. Um, Now, what do you think about replacing representatives? Like, what if we had a similar system, right, where we had a Congress, right, that passed bills, and we had like a president that we voted for in elections, but we completely replaced representatives entirely with the Soviets and have like a mixed system.
Wouldn't that just be social democracy?
Um, Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't. Am I tripping? That does sound like social democracy.
Pretty much, I just like, yeah, I think you're right. Well, I don't know
Right now,
because I don't think Denmark has Soviets, right?
yeah, but the ain't that the isn't that the model like the economic model at least of Sweden, Norway, and Finland, where they have a large social safety net for average citizens, but they still benefit from uh, extraction of resources in the global south and outsourced labor from large corporations.
Oh yeah. Which is why I laugh when like that's why like that's where dem socks are totally like still misleading or missing the point because they always when they like I love when they make the arguments against capitalism, but then they'll tell liberals like look at Denmark, look at Norway, and I'll be like, no, 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 these countries are still also exploitive as fuck.
But I mean, you said dem socks. You mean sock dems, or
Huh.
would you say those are the same? Would you use them interchangeably?
I would use them interchangeably just because it's America and like if I say a democratic socialist, like everyone knows I'm talking about like a DSA Zoran Mamdani kind of person.
Hmm. Do you think Zoran? Do you like Zoran so far?
I um I I do. I do. I think there's a lot
Hmm.
more he could be doing, but like um I don't expect I don't expect every left-wing politician I like to say we need to dismantle systems of power, but I would like them to.
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean, like
Um.
my thing is he's actively doing things that are helping and he's not corrupt as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I don't think he's like he's not doing like what Mayor Adams was doing.
Oh
Mayor
man,
Adams was
Adams was
awesome.
moving different, dude.
No, he honestly was moving like he was moving great. I want to. He truly was. Let me see. Let me see. What year?
Please like if you're enjoying the conversations. Um Dude, it's so weird um how like how do we dismantle this power? Like it's like
You can't
when
even
you
say that on the TikTok live.
oh shit. Okay. How do
No, I'm being shit. Like you can't really talk about that stuff online.
got you. I see. I see.
Mhm.
We'll have to we'll talk about that later. Um
Yeah.
yeah. But why is it that the proletariat, like, when did such anti-union messaging become so prevalent? Like, we used to have a very
I
pro-union
would say
culture.
anti. I would say that's a. I would say that's a large component of McCarthyism. Is you don't have to outright like be like, oh, communism bad. You have to do it in small chunks. And destroying unions is one of the greatest hallmarks of McCarthyism, where you are able to make sure that workers have less representation to argue for more autonomy within the workplace. Um, and when you do that, you make sure that people, quote unquote, fall in line. And that is the crux of why nowadays, unions aren't nowhere near as powerful as they were back in like the 20s and 30s and 40s. Like back then, unions ran things and you had to make sure your workers were taken care of if you wanted to stay afloat in business. I mean, nowadays you do have to make sure your workers are somewhat satisfied, especially if you're a small business owner. But there's nowhere near the same amount of protections for workers as it was back in the day. And plus, you have the component of what I would call the professional managerial class, where they're in between the boss and the worker, but they do the bidding of the boss to where they make
Yes,
sure that the workers don't get out of line and make
I
sure
call
the
them
workers
lapdogs.
not lapdog. Yeah, that's a better way to put it. They make sure that the workers don't unionize. They make sure that they don't um have. They make sure they don't put any complaints to the boss, and they sort of play the middleman, but they often will side with the boss over the worker.
And I don't even my the thing that bothers me is I don't necessarily actually mind principally what they do if it was just flipped. Like if they were elected by the work council and they had to adhere to the work council, but also keep the work council in line in a way. Like if it was more mutual, I think it would work out. But like it's extremely exploitive because it's a top down system that's bureaucratic, you know. Well, and the problem that we have also seen, which is why I think I propose a model. I think we should do work councils where the work council owns 51% and the government owns 49%, so that the workers still have more control over how all that stuff goes, and because then otherwise, if the government is
Wait,
just
so
telling
do
you,
you wait? So you identify as a Marxist Leninist?
me, yes,
Yeah,
I
because I
I
was gonna say
love
that's a
state and
very that's
revolution. I love
State and
you know
Revolution is a Marxist Leninist. Well, it's not a Marxist Leninist, but it's by Lenin, but it's not like a it's not Marxist Leninist, I guess. Well, what is it? Well, I'm asking you because I actually don't know the difference. What is the difference between a contemporary Marxist? What's the difference between a Marxist, a Leninist, and a Marxist Leninist?
Oh, this is a good one. Um, I I would say Leninist is a Marxist Leninist, pretty much. I've never met someone who's said like I'm a Leninist, but I'm not a Marxist Leninist. But like this is where I'm not as familiar with these things as other people. Like right now, I'm trying to learn about Marxist Leninist Maoism because I don't know if that's any different than just Maoism or what the differences are between Maoism and Marxist Leninism. But for your specific question, I can't answer that one though. I think the difference between like contemporary Marxism and like this. I met one of these people at a DSA meeting recently. We were talking, and they're running an election, and I'm cheering for them all the way. But
Mm-hmm.
this person is a contemporary Marxist. They do not believe in Leninism. They think that authoritarian left is not an answer to authoritarian right. They think that and they specifically looked at me and said word for word, through the ballot box we will achieve socialism. So that's your answer for
Who
that.
said that? That is a liberal ass take.
that
That is
they
liberal as fuck.
that is
What?
a
That is the most. That is a Zoran Mamdani. That is a AOC answer.
that
That's
is
an
what I'm
AOC answer,
saying,
bro.
dude. They're
Ah, that's crazy.
they
We
want
will
us to
achieve it.
run like how how is the ballot box going to give workers the means of production, dude? What? Like
I got this. I got this PDF here. History from one student to another. What is the difference between Marxism and history revision website podcast by Robin Whitehead? Okay, this okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna PDF this. But bro, it was great talking to you, dog. I gotta get ready to go, but it was great talking to you, dog.
it was, dude. Thanks for talking.
I
This was
appreciate
a
it.
awesome interview, Chad. This was
Yes,
episode
sir.
2 of the Workers Manifesto podcast with Chad, and thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it, bro. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too, brother.
Mhm.